Hi everyone, it's Paula here for this week's Pocket Parenting. These episodes are here for you to support you in becoming an empowering, influential, and inspiring leader to your children, to create exceptional relationships with your kiddos, and live a vision-driven life. And most of all, learning to parent from a place of overflow instead of overwhelm, from a place of not being triggered, so that you can really meet your child's developmental needs. And that is what is going to set them up for success in life. Today, I want to talk about how to build resiliency in children. Last week, we talked about how to talk to children about news of war, how to talk to them about what's going on in the world right now. And one of the biggest things that we can do to really strengthen kids from the inside out is to build their resilience. So I want to talk a little bit about what resilience means and what are the components of resilience, what is required to build that in children, and also give you some practical ideas at the end of the episode. So stay tuned all the way to the end so you will get all the juicy stuff, okay? So resilience is defined as ability to bounce back after challenges and tough times. So really think about it like, this bouncing back action. We get hit to the ground, we get slammed to the ground, there's challenges, and somehow we bounce back and we rise above those challenges. So you can even think about situations in your life where you have bounced back from stressors, traumas, challenges, because life will bring those challenges and traumas in our way. Experiencing trauma is actually part of life. We all have it. We all experience trauma. The first traumatic event that we experience is the birth. So pretty wild to come through that very narrow birth canal and take your first breath, and probably like burns the lungs, and you're like, where am I now? So pretty drastic experience, right? So traumas are part of life. Now, in order for us to live a life of happiness, of fulfillment and joy, we get to bounce back from those life events and losses that happen. And for us to be able to bounce back, what is required is certain conditions to be in place. And I'm going to talk about all that. One of them is social support. So we know that having social support, having a good group of people around us is like a shield of magical shield of protectiveness. So that is one of the biggest resiliency factors, is for the child to have some support and some social support around them, like different that. And what that could mean is that could mean children and friends who are the same age. Of course, means mom and dad, grandparents, family, teachers, daycare, and all those kinds of things. So take a little evaluation of your child's social support circle, and it's your job as a parent to make sure that every single relationship in your child's life is positive. It really is so valuable that sometimes you might need to go to some great lengths to create that. For example, I have worked with many families where we changed the preschool altogether for the child because the relationship with the teacher or the way the school was running things wasn't positive. Do not hesitate to pull the plug from these situations. And if it's a family member, of course, we can't just like say sayonara, right? But work with that person, communicate, don't avoid, be assertive, be confident, so that you can really support your child experiencing positive relationships in their lives. The other thing that is related to how resilient a child is and how do they really process and move through traumas and pain that happens in life is their temperament. So some kids come out and they are the the most courageous, and they are the risk takers, and they are climbing trees, and they are climbing the equipment at the playground, and they are fierce and fearless. Some kids are like that. Now, if you as a parent have the opposite temperament, you might get some heart palpitations here because that's not what you would do. Just be aware of that and let your child be free. Let them be who they are without your own anxieties or your own different temperamental style having that impact them and influence them. Some kids' temperament is very quiet, very shy. They think about things a lot. They like are very thoughtful in their actions, and they're kind of slower to do new things. So, depending on this temperament and emotional sensitivity, there's no good or bad in any of this. It's just different. So, sometimes those kinds of things also impact resiliency and how kids deal with traumatic things that happen to them. Also, what's really important in how do we deal with traumas and stressful events is how many do we have them in our lives? So it's the cumulative factor of things. So if a child has like one thing after another, there's COVID, and there's a change in school, and there's parent separation, and there's the best friend moving, and now the dog died, like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. Now we are talking about cumulative impact of trauma where one hasn't really been able to work through and process through the first one when the second one hits, and then the second one, and then the third one. So just being aware, okay, if you're like, oh, why is my child having all these behaviors and tantrums? So if they are older children, they could have more defiance or oppositional behavior. That's how emotional hurt comes out sometimes. Then look at like, okay, what stressors have they had in the past year or so? And sometimes these stressors are just too much for kiddos to be able to handle and manage on their own. So be mindful and be aware of what's going on in your child's life. Okay, the fourth thing is attachment style or attachment status. Again, I talk a lot about attachment. Is that it's the relationship and connection, how safe and trusting the child feels with you. Do they trust that you're not going to leave them? Do they feel open with you so that they can fully, unconditionally, unrestricted express their emotions to you, even anger? And that is part of the safety, that container that you provide for your child, for allowing them to even express negative emotions towards you. Like, I mean, who else they are gonna do it express it to, right? So attachment status, of course, secure attachment, we know, number one factor in terms of the future success of the child academically, career-wise, in relationships, and so forth. So always, it's that connection. No matter what you do, the most important thing is the connection. Like, can you maintain that connection even when there is a meltdown and crying, even if there's oppositional behavior, even what it doesn't, even if you get to set a boundary, and be connected all at the same time, right? That if that's one thing that kind of sticks out for you from anything that I ever say, that is a beautiful thing. So yeah, social support, temperament, how many repeated traumas have the child had, and in what frequency? Like, are they happening one after another? Do they have time to bounce back in between? And also the attachment status. So those are important factors to keep in mind in terms of how a child is going to bounce back from adversity, bounce back from tough times and challenges. Now, here's the thing. resiliency can be developed, and my invitation is to be very intentional about actually developing resilience in children. That is, a huge chunk of what I do in therapy, which is building resources, building resilience. And that's all we might do with some kids, especially in a treatment of trauma, for example. We go through processing the trauma and all these kinds of things. And then after that, the final stage is really like building those resources in the child, making them feel strong and calm and confident. So again, for a child to be able to have those challenges in life, because that is where you build resiliency, is providing an opportunity for some challenges, something that the child might find a little bit difficult, a little bit stressful, but they are able to get through it because of the supportive relationship. So think about how, as a parent, you can give the child opportunities for skill building, and how your relationship with the child provides that protective shield, provides regulation and safety for the child to be able to do those challenging things. So you can think about like this principle, when you understand it, you can apply that into any interaction with your child. It doesn't take any extra effort, any extra time. You just, most of the time, what I've noticed is that parents just get to let their child be freer than they think they should be, and let them do more than you think they should do. So you really get to let go of control, letting go of running your own agenda, and surrendering into always starting with trusting the child and letting them do anything that it is in the household, having them be part of cooking and whatever it is, household projects, building projects, fixing things. There's just endless examples where you involve your child in all that. And those are beautiful opportunities to have some challenging and frustrating situation perhaps arise from that activity, and that you don't go and help them immediately. Let the child struggle. Let them struggle. Let them get frustrated, because it's that right amount of stress and right amount of challenge that then they overcome that. Now you have built resilience. Now you have built a positive neural network in their brain where they have a sense of mastery. They have a sense of mastery about that. So not all stress is harmful. Children need to be exposed to stress in order to learn how to handle stress. So just do a little self-check, little self-evaluation. If you are very overly protective, or if you're like helicopter mom or dad, your child might not have the appropriate opportunities to experience stress and have a challenging situation that they can then overcome. So there's this concept of zone of optimal learning. Zone of optimal learning. Good teachers know about this zone of optimal learning, which means that it's very individualized for each child. So this is not a cookie cutter approach. It's for each child, where the child is really pushed to the edge of their capability without overwhelming them. So that's why you always gotta be aware and mindful. Where is your child in learning this skill? So you can support them to be right at the edge. They're right at the edge, because if they are never in the edge, they are never able to break through that barrier to the other side. On the other side is their confidence, them feeling invincible, them feeling amazing, them feeling so good about themselves. So but they need to be supported to go all the way to the edge, but always back off if it's too overwhelming. Now we are outside of that optimal zone of learning. And I really love what Michael Mendiza and Joseph Chilton Pierce talk about in the book Magical Parent, Magical Child, The Art of Joyful Parenting. So they talk about this concept of optimum learning relationship. So we have the zone of optimal learning, and that learning, which is discovery and mastery, can happen inside this optimum learning relationship, which is your relationship with your child. And the main ingredients for this optimum learning relationships is connection, interaction, and interdependence. Interdependence. Okay, so that just means that, we're not leaving the kiddo all by themselves, and we are also not hovering over it. It's interdependent, it's interaction, and it's the word synergy comes to my mind. So see how different that is from the old school way of, I'm the adult, I'm the parent, I know this, I know that, I'm going to teach you, you don't know anything, here I am teaching you, giving you all this info. Let's let go of that. My invitation is just take that out of your mind right now and let it go, and think about more of this interaction, interdependence, connection. It's more like a dance than anything else. Okay. The other image I want to give you is what they call serve and return interaction, because it's in that serve and return interaction that attachment and connection is created. It's just like tennis, you serve, ball gets return, you serve, ball gets return. Guess who the server is? Your child. Your child is the server. And this is when the ball gets returned every time. This is where the brain develops to have a sense of safety, security, predictability, all those beautiful things that we know that really support kids in thriving. So always you can also think, okay, have I returned my child's serve? They are asking for attention. They are whatever it is, give them that return. And this begins from a very young age. Think about a little baby, little babies. They start, making faces, and they open their mouths and they look at us, and we open our mouth back and make the same face. We mirror the child. This is serve and return happening already there. And then from there on, it just looks a little different in every developmental stage. Okay, so optimal zone of learning, which happens in the optimum learning relationship that is connected, interactive, interdependent. Think about serve and return interactions with your child at any point. I love what Mackie Dent says about when a child is asking, Mommy, 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 can you do this with me for a little bit? Can you do this? Can you play? Please, 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 please play with me. And usually the response is like, yeah, in a minute or later or this or that. I'm busy. I have a to-do list, whatever it is, right? Life happens, not good or bad. It just is. And what if we say for a minute instead of in a minute? For a minute. It could be 20 seconds. It could be, oh, you really want to play. I can see that. Okay, come here. Let me give you a hug. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Give like a 30-second biggest bear hug ever. I love you. Kisses in the forehead. And now the kid is going to be happy and just gonna run off and go to play. So at least there is the opportunity for that versus just being a little disconnected and saying later, later, later. Okay. So now to the how part. Okay, so you've gotten a lot of information, a lot of theory, things that you can keep in mind. So here's some ideas, and here's some guidelines. Again, just get creative. Once you understand what I'm talking about and you understand these different concepts, you can just get super creative. There's so many things you can apply this to anything. So one place where you can develop resilience is play games with your child. So game called Suspend, Tumbling Monkeys, or with older children, the chess, anything that's kind of challenging like that. And the suspense game is super fun. You can play it as a family. The Tumbling Monkeys is a fun game too. It takes a lot of hand-eye coordination and things like that. Those are super fun games to play that kind of tests the frustration tolerance, and again helps kids go to the edges of what they can do and their limit, and it's fun and it's playful at the same time. You could do that serve and return interaction just by playing with your child. Just play with them. Let your child lead and have fun playing with them. You could play with balloons. Just have a balloon or two and just, okay, let's play a game with balloons. Let's try to keep them in the air without having the balloon touch the ground. Very simple. Serve and return, serve and return. I also like the feather. I don't know if you've heard me talk about that before, but have a little feather. So it's like that back and forth game. You hold the feather on the palm of your hand. Your child is, waiting to catch the feather, but you can't touch it. You just blow the feather, and your child catches it with two palms or one palm, cannot hold it with fingers, and then your child blows the feather back to you. What are we doing? Attachment. This is an attachment game. Serve and return, serve and return. You could even have some mechanism or some system in place to just write positive statements, like resiliency statements. So when I had my office, I used to have like cute little hearts, different colored hearts. You can buy those from Etsy. You can buy like tons of like just hearts. They are ready, like cut already. And I would invite children to write things like, what's your heart wants to tell you? What's a message from your heart to yourself? So it could be, you are kind, you are nice, you're lovable, you're this, you're that. Sometimes, kids really started to write these messages and bring them to their parents as well. So have heart messages. Then I also had little birds, like this was especially older kids, they know Twitter. So I called those tweets. So they could, I invited them to, just write a little tweet for yourself. Write a little positive, encouraging statement, a tweet to yourself that's going to support you and help you and kind of help you solve a problem or cope with something. So the idea of the heart message, it comes from the heart. The tweet is more cognitive. The tweet comes more from the head. So we get to build both of them. So that's an activity I had in my office. And then just go for it. Get super creative. Any interaction and a lot of just regular day-to-day household things, you can build that into a resiliency training, basically developing resiliency. Now, the main thing here is being intentional about it. So being super, super intentional, no matter what you do. It could be even cooking. Maybe it's just baking. Could be just baking. Have your child do things that are kind of challenging for them, and notice when they succeed and celebrate the success. Really take a moment to celebrate and acknowledge them for when they are able to master something. Okay, so here's my call to action for this week is to be intentional about building your child's resiliency. And remember, you are the container. You are the safety. You are the container. You are the safe space for them. So also remembering to build that positive attachment and relationship with your kiddos. Okay. That's all I have for this week. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye now.